And welcome to a training session for COM110. This is Com Tech, and we're going to be learning a little bit about the basics of Adobe Audition. Now, what we're going to do is just learn the basics of opening the program, getting to know the program a little bit, inserting files to be edited, recording files to be edited. Then once they're in there, how to edit them, what to do with them, how to save them, all those sorts of things, how to turn volumes up and down, and how to add effects, all kinds of things that you'll find useful in COM110. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we'll need for Adobe Audition is, of course, Adobe Audition. So you should have this installed through the Creative Suite. And when it opens up, in general, it may look something like this. There may be a pop-up box of some sort that opens up and gives you a couple options. If so, just say OK to the default settings, and that will be perfectly fine for this class's purpose. So one thing we need to know about Adobe Audition is there are two different views. It's something called a multi-track recorder. So that means that there can be multiple tracks recorded at once that can blend together to make a final audio file. The way that we know how those audio files go together and how they display is through these two options up here. There are two views in Adobe Audition. First, there is the waveform view. That's just a single track. It looks like this. When I click on that, it pops up the option. This is where we can go ahead and say yes to the defaults or OK to the default setting. This sets you up so that you can record a single file. If you would like to record multiple files or multi-tracks, this is the button that you'd push, and it would ask you for default settings again. You just say OK to that, no problem. The session already exists. If it says that to you, just to overwrite it because we haven't done anything yet. No big deal. This is the multi-track view. So instead of just one track being recorded at once, this allows you to edit multiple tracks. See 1, 2, 3 setup in this view. For now, we're just going to do a very simple recording. We're going to go back up to this waveform view where it's just one simple thing. It's similar to like an old school recorder and everything. You see these things on iTunes. You know how to push record and everything. So you simply push the red record button, and once you do that, if your computer is set up correctly, you should start to see your voice like this. This is, of course, the recording of my voice right now. To stop the recording, you push the square, which is stop. And there you have your saved recording. What this does, even though it's the waveform view as selected up here, it actually records it in stereo. So the channel up here, this track is the left channel, and this is the right. That comes in very handy when you want to do things in stereo, especially when you're listening to them in a vehicle or maybe at a movie theater or something like that. But it's not too concerning for you to know the difference between the two channels at this point, just because of what you guys are doing with the purpose of this class. So I've recorded something, I stopped it, and now if I want to hear it back, you just take the cursor here, you select somewhere. Wherever you select is where it will start playing, so you probably want to select the beginning area here. You can either push play down here, or you can use the spacebar to start the recording and listen back. Once you do that, if your computer is set up correctly, you should start to see your voice like this. This is, of course, the recording of my voice. And you can push the spacebar again to stop it where you please, or you can push the stop button as you're recording. So whatever you prefer. Lots of ways to do things within Adobe Audition. Fairly simple. So we've recorded something. Pretty simple. Now let's try something new. Let's try to open a file that already exists. It's very simple. It's similar to like Word or many other programs that you'd use. You go up to the top of the screen, and you can't see it in this view that's being recorded, but you simply open a file. So you go to File, which you can only see a portion of right now, File, and Open. Very simple. And you go to a place where you know there's an audio file that you'd like to open and listen to. This is one I've predetermined. I just literally double click on it and it flows in. So here's a music track that I've already gotten ready for you guys for us to use. I'm just pushing the space bar so we can hear the song. And as you notice, as that song is playing, you're watching the sound levels down here. Let's do that again. As the song's playing, you can see the levels down here. Anything that's green is okay. Anything that's yellow is okay, but anything that's red is going to be a little bit too loud, especially when it comes to playing back or recording your voice. Now that I'm going to stop this, now that we have learned how to not only record your voice, but also insert a file to listen to, let's go back and record again, record our voice again, and now we can see how we're using our microphone. If our voice is going to be too loud on the recording and distorted, that's going to be bad. Or if it's going to be too quiet. If it's too quiet, we're going to have an issue because we're not going to be able to hear you. Our goal is to hear you even if you don't want to hear your own voice on your recording that we make on Adobe Audition. So now let's go back to the beginning. In the top file, which you can't see in the screenshot, I'm just going to make a new file. So I'm in a new audio file. There it goes. It's going to pop up a message once again, always just say okay to whatever the default is. And now it's clear once again, and now I can record my file. So I'll go to record here, press record, and you can see my voice. Now, if I talk really loudly and really close to the microphone, you'll see that there's a lot of red showing up. You'll also see here that these red bars have become solid. That means at some point during my recording, things have gotten too loud. So that's a good indicator that you need to either back off from your microphone, or if you have the option on the microphone itself that you're using, if it's an external mic, to turn it down a little bit. Most of you will probably just be using the internal mic on your computer. To clear that out, I can just click on it and get rid of that red and back up a little bit. Literally, I'm just backing away from my computer. Now as I'm talking, you see my voice is in the green area as well as the yellow, but not too loud. It's not going into the red at all. It's not showing red up here. And so I know that I'm safe. I'm a good recording level. The nice thing about recording in Adobe Audition is that you can visually see how loud you're talking, how loud your recording is. Right here, you can see it's about, depending on the size of your screen, to me it looks like it's about 1.5 inches tall. And since I'm in green and about halfway through the yellow, that's a good area for my voice and loudness and volume to live and to exist. So with that, we're recording. Physically watch the screen right here and watch how loud that is, and you should be okay in your recording. I'm going to push stop here to stop our recording. When I stop recording, you will not be able to see these levels anymore. So just for your insight and information as you start out on that, that's something that you need to know as you begin recording. There are some basics on here of how you know how something is being recorded, how it's moving along, the length of what you're recording, and even to be able to stretch it out so you can see an audio file in its entirety, or you might be able to only see an audio file in portion depending on how you're viewing it. So if you're in a basic computer program, typically there's a scroll bar along the right side here. You can scroll up and down the bottom of like your Word document, for instance. In Adobe Audition, the bar is not up and down, but it is on the top. So here you have the ability to select this and scroll back and forth if the file is not all visible in this window. Right now it is all visible, and if we were to go up here, instead of scrolling, see how there's the arrow and the what's that called, magnifying glass that shows up. If I left click on my mouse and start to drag this, what this does is it stretches out the file. And once the file is stretched out, I then can take my little cursor right here, see the little hand that showed up, and use this. I selected this and I'm scrolling through the entire thing. That makes it easier if you're looking at something here and you want to cut something out, or if you want to see maybe where you made a mistake, maybe where there was a pause, maybe you had to cough like that, and you wanted to take that out of your recording. That's how you could do it. You could scroll back and forth. But you say, hey Rachel, this is a problem because I want to see everything. How do I do that? Well, here are all of your options right here and how you want to stretch, bend, view your recording. First, we can zoom into everything. So if you zoom this way, let's see, this is zooming up and down. So we can actually make the recording much louder or make the recording much quieter, which you typically wouldn't do too much. Here, we'd zoom based on time. So see, as I click that along the top, this is changing because the view is changing. It's stretching out, stretching, and then in here we can shrink, shrink, shrink. until we want to. Now let's say something's like this. We're tired of scrolling back and forth to look at our audio. We can actually use this one. Everything will zoom out to its full capacity. You can see the recording in its entirety right there. So that's really helpful. That's how you can use the zoom and stretch in the waveform view. Next video, we're going to be taking a look at the multi-track view and how you insert files, how you record that way, and how you save them as well. Now, if you are just in this waveform view, if we have recorded our voice and that's all that we want, we can go up to the top to the options along the top of your computer. You cannot see it in the screenshot, but we have the options of File, Edit, Multi-Track, Effects, Favorites, and other things down the line. I'm going to go to File. It's super easy. Save or Save As. And when I save, it'll give me the option of how to save this. For the purpose of this class, we always want to save everything in an MP3 format. Not because we don't care about quality, but you're going to have to submit the files that you create through Blackboard, and if they're WAV files, they're going to be way too big and take way too long to upload just because of their size. So you simply just go right here in Format and select MP3. Then you label your file, whatever you'd like to call it. Let's call it Test 1. And once you do that, you say, okay, if this is the right place you want to save it. Is this where you want to save it? Maybe. I'd make a file folder, maybe on your desktop. I believe that you can, yes, I believe that you can create one if you don't already have one on your desktop. So let's call it COM110. That makes sense, right? So saving it in COM110, we're calling it test1.mp3 and save. It will say, okay, it'll go through a little process, and you now know that this recording that we tested with is saved. And that is video number 1 for how to record in the waveform view and how to insert files in Adobe Audition.